Okay, so welcome back. This week's going to be just a titter bit different, and we're gonna just dive straight in.
Yeah. So, if you've been following our Instagram, link below, you'll know that we've been in the process of refits for literal months. And so, today we're going to start with probably one of our more popular posts on Instagram.
With our frameless Portlights.
Yes.
Initially we took out the regular Portlights that come standard on a Catalina 30 and with the intent to rebend them and put them back in because they really kick.
And these are the original aluminum framed Portlights. And yeah, they were fine enough. So most of the glass on these sailboats tend to have a bit of a curve to them because there's like 0 straight edges on a boat. At least one as old as ours. At some point in its history, about 4 of the lenses had been replaced. The bend that each side was naturally supposed to have was no longer there. We could have either cut some plexiglass to replace parts of them, gotten tempered glass.
Either way, there was a mountain of ideas that we could have chosen from. We decided on the mountainous project of putting in frameless Portlights.
Mountainous is really the right way to say it.
So that's kind of the prequel of what happened before. We had actually filmed some of that, not all of it. We were still getting the hang of filming. So we decided to start here on this project instead of that project. So let's get started with that.
So I just finished tracing the windows on some plywood, and now I'm cutting them out and I'm going to start fine-tuning the shape and getting them ready for some fiberglass. I'm about to cut the base for all these templates that I made, and so I'm trying to size how big I want it. So I'm building the bed that the Lexan will ultimately sit in. And so to do that, I need to mark off basically a quarter, am I doing a quarter? A half an inch in from the edge of our Lexan pattern so that I know how far the fiberglass has to go on our mold.
Okay, gentle viewers, to be perfectly honest, I have no idea what he's talking about. I don't understand how this is all going to go together. I understood the initial plan yesterday when we designed it. Now I have no clue what he's talking about, so I guess we'll see it at the same time.
Not the same time.
I mean, technically no, but the camera sees it and I see it at the same time, so close enough.
Same enough, I guess.
I don't know. So, guess we'll wait and see what happens once he makes this other form and then fiberglasses it and then makes it all pretty and shiz. I'm excited. Get excited. 1,000,000,000%. Right now we're just taking fiberglass and framing out this first piece. Still kind of a trial, but
Definitely a trial.
I think we'll nail it because we're what?
Sickening bitch.
Wow. Just put some gloves up. Okay, so now we are mixing the epoxy resin and gonna get started.
This is just the mold for the part that will go on the boat. So this is step one, and really one of the most important steps, because if your mold doesn't work out, your parts aren't going to work out.
Okay, so we're done with the fiberglassing. It has sat, it is cured, it is ready, it's nice and hard. So from here, I am going to sand it out so we can get it smoothed. And then once it's all nice and smooth, we'll throw some Bondo on it just to make sure that it is good to go before we put gel coat and get the final steps rolling.
Now that we generated our first mold, we learned a little bit about what worked and what didn't work.
Biggest thing we noticed was epoxy is messy, fiberglass is messy,
And itchy.
and so when we were putting on the epoxy, it was just free flowing into the center, which is where the hole in the lens was, the part where you physically look out of a window.
You have nothing to indicate where the frame line's supposed to end and the viewable area is supposed to begin. I had the bright idea of cutting out an insert out of
Foam insulation.
foam insulation, thank you, gluing it onto each mold that we had generated so that we would have this consistent viewable area masked off when we built the parts.
now that I've seen Nick do it, I'm convinced that I can do it and I'll be a freaking pro at it. So I'm gonna give this little saw thingy bobber a go. See if I can do this. Never used one before. Today's the first time. So let's see how this goes. But I know if Nick can do it, I can do it because I'm a hardworking, independent individual with talent and skill and genius type stuff and other things.
From the top of the mountain. Yeah, all this struggle just keeps me coming back dangerous. All this trouble just keeps me coming so high. And from way up here, I swear this game was made for us. 'Cause I can touch the sky. From the top of the mountain. From the top of the mountain.
Before we began sanding, what we were sanding was the molds themselves. So after we got them into a good place of adding fairing compound around the edges and making sure the lines that we wanted to be smooth were smooth, and so once we got all these inserts down onto the mold, we had to start fairing and sanding the edges to get them ready to start generating our parts.
So what you just saw was the beautiful molds that we will then be building the frames onto. But we didn't show you every tiny little step. In that little step of just building the molds, there were a bunch of little tiny steps that we didn't capture because they were quick or what have you. So Nick will explain what the tiny steps were in succession.
Okay, so once we had built the wood on the platform, we took some thickened epoxy and created a nice taper around the edge. Had to sand that down to make it nice and smooth. Then we took some gel coat, gel coated the entire area, partly for us to see the highs and lows. So then we'd sand that down again. And once all the little crevices in the epoxy were filled in and the gel coat was sanded and smooth, we were just about ready to generate our first part.
So
Anyways, that's our episode for today.
that is it for this. We wanted to start with this because there was a lot of curiosity involved in the frameless Portlights, how we were going about them, what they would look like, what was the process we were doing. So we wanted to start with this monumental project. So this will encompass a handful of episodes right out the gate. Subscribe so you can come back next week to see us, and make sure you hit the little bell notification button so that you get notified every time we have an episode.
Also, please leave us a like and a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you, and we try to respond to every comment as quickly as possible.
You can let us know your thoughts on the process of what we're doing, or tell us how crazy we are for taking on such a monumental project right out the gate when we had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah, this was our first foray with fiberglass, our first boat project, like, entirely.
You can follow us on social media to stay up to date with where we're at currently, or see more pictures. The link is down below, as well as our website where we have semi-regular blog posts and larger photos and
More info about Ixion as a whole, as well as merch if you're into merch and would like to support us that way. And lastly, if you're liking the content that we're generating via social media or here on YouTube, please consider becoming a patron. It's a great way to support independent artists like ourselves, as well as it really gives you a lot of bonus content that we generate, as well as discounts on merchandise and sneak previews,
just a whole plethora of things that make the experience of sailing Ixion just so much better. Also, it helps us continue to do this.
Yeah.
Because
we want to circumnavigate the world and get to know everybody who lives around there. And we want to circumnavigate the world and meet all of our viewers, as well as people who think differently than us. And with your support, we'll be able to make that happen.
so if you would like to support us, the link is down below in the description. So thank you all for watching, and we will see you next week as we continue this big project.
Yeah.
Bye.